The immigration bill passed its first hurdle today, with the Conservatives voting through this pointless bill. The Shadow Home Secretary was on fire yet again, pointing out all its failures and making fools of the interventions she received, and yet no Tory MP voted against it. Admittedly, 43 Tories didn't vote at all, but they could have proven their disdain by voting against it. But they didn't. They just sat on their hands. This bill, as you'll see in a moment, won't solve the problem. In fact, it'll make it worse. MPs rejected a Labour Party amendment which argued the bill lacked any effective measures to tackle criminal activity and people smuggler gangs. But it's been passed and now it will progress to the committee stage, where it will be scrutinised and any more amendments proposed. After that, there'll be a final vote in the bill in the Commons before it heads to the House of Lords.
But right now, after 13 years of Conservative government, we have none of those things. Yeah. Our border security undermined because they let the criminal, smuggler and trafficking gangs rip, and the asylum system in chaos, letting everyone down. And all they can offer is this bill which makes all of those problems worse. A massive increase in the gangs operating along the Channel, a massive drop in the number of criminals caught, and still refusing to go after the gangs, and the Deputy Chair of the Conservative Party thinking we shouldn't even bother. Yeah. I'll give way to the honourable member if he will now support our proposals for a cross-border police unit to go after the criminal gangs.
She has just referred to the backlog in asylum cases. If she thinks the current figure means the system is in chaos, then what was her description of the system under the Labour government of which she was a member, which had backlog in asylum cases of between 400 and 450,000?
The former Prime Minister and former Home Secretary is experienced enough to know that is not an accurate characterisation of what happened.
It's not based on your numbers. Based on your numbers.
And that by the time the Labour government left office, the backlog of initial decisions was just a few thousand. Now it is 160,000 and in fact has trebled in the last few years as a result of the complete failure by the Conservative benches.
Friend for giving way. Does she, like me, get really annoyed when she hears members opposite talk about a Labour government from 13 years ago? And does she, like me, wonder why this government, having been in charge for 13 years, continuously likes to look all the way back rather than addressing their own failures?
And time and again, ministers just want to blame someone else. All the members of the Conservative Party just want to blame someone else, but they have been in charge for the last 13 years. They keep telling us the asylum system is broken. Well, seriously, who broke it? At the heart of it, there is a con, because the Prime Minister has pledged that anyone who arrives in the UK without the right papers will be detained and swiftly removed. No ifs, no buts. But where to? So not to France, because the Prime Minister failed to get a returns agreement, failed with other countries as well. And this bill makes it harder to get return agreements because it undermines compliance with the international laws and standards that those other countries are committed to uphold. I will give way to the honourable member, but I have one more and then I need to make some progress.
Shadow Home Secretary giving way, Mr Deputy Speaker. My focus goes back to what was already mentioned, which is Clause 49, which is looking specifically at interim measures from the Strasbourg Court, which we know have no actually effect in UK law, but UK courts may take them into effect when they're passing their own judgments. Would the Shadow Home Secretary and the Labour Party support me in wanting to see this particular clause beefed up and actually making sure that the Home Secretary is under a statutory duty to remove unlawful migrants?
Well, I think he perhaps should have put that question to the Home Secretary, because he appears to disagree with his own Conservative government policy and be off on another bit of freelancing for himself, further undermining, I would say, any possibility of getting international agreements, whether it's on returns or anything else. He is planning to make it even harder to get the kinds of returns agreements we need and to get the kind of international cooperation we need as well.
Their plan appears to be to process asylum applications even more quickly, so more people will come, or process them in France, where an unlimited number want to come, or this ridiculous idea of a cross-border police force. Everybody knows that, on average, you get caught once on the beaches by the French police. You are not detained, you come back the very next night. They all get there. She knows perfectly well that the only way we're going to stop these boats is the government plan and to detain them and to deport them to Rwanda.
Yeah. All 200 of them. All 200 of them.
The honourable member is just kidding himself if he thinks any of the government's plan is actually going to happen. If he thinks that it's actually going to work. Clause 9, Mr Deputy Speaker, Clause 9 says what happens to all of these people who cannot be returned? To the tens of thousands of people who will arrive, are expected to arrive, according to the government, since the 7th of March. What will happen to them? Clause 9 says the Home Office will provide them with accommodation and support. In other words, they will go back into asylum, accommodation and hotels, but they just won't ever get an asylum decision. So tens of thousands of people every year will be added to the Home Office backlog, only this is going to be a permanent backlog that they aren't ever even going to try and clear. Those who would have been returned after their asylum claim was refused now will not be. And those who would have been granted sanctuary will be stuck in limbo instead. It's going to get worse, not better, because effectively all they've concluded is that the Tory Home Office is so rubbish at taking any asylum decisions on time, they've decided to just stop doing them altogether, and they are hoping that no one will notice. So consider what it means for the young Vietnamese woman who's been trafficked into sexual exploitation, repeatedly raped and beaten by criminal gangs who brought her here and who control and dictate her life. Under this bill, if the police find her when they bust the brothel, she won't be able to get modern slavery support anymore, won't be able to go to a safe house or get help from the Salvation Army. Instead, she'll just be locked up in one of the Home Office detention centres. If she cooperates with the police for a bit, she might get some temporary support. But if that police investigation is closed, her world comes crashing down again. And here's what the Prime Minister tweeted about all of that. If you come to the UK illegally, you can't benefit from our modern slavery protections. You will be denied access to the UK's modern slavery system. The Tory party once voted to introduce safeguards on the detention of children, and they were right to do so. The Tory party once voted to introduce the modern slavery bill, and they were right to do so. But what has happened to them now? How low have they fallen, and how far down are they trying to drag our proud country? Because that is what this is. It is an attempt to drag our whole country down. They know this bill won't work to stop boat crossings or to stop the gangs. They know it won't clear the backlog. They know it will make the chaos worse. They know it will stop children and trafficking gangs getting help and play into the hands of criminal gangs. And they know it will undermine our reputation in the eyes of the world as a country that believes in the rule of law. But they don't care. Because this is about political gains. This is about a lame Prime Minister making promises that he has no intention of keeping. All he wants is a dividing line. All he wants is to pick a fight. And all he wants is someone else to blame.
Tobias Ellwood came out earlier criticising the bill, and you can see what he had to say about it in this video that's on screen now. Don't forget to hit that like button or the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.